So there was recently an alien invasion, and you suddenly have the power to turn back time. Would you use it to save the planet? Let's find out. The movie begins by showing several news broadcasts of global turmoil in what looks to be a global terrorist attack. Cities in ruin, along with refugee camps. We are told that it is an alien attack, with the only thing holding them back being an army unit called the United Defense Force. Waking up in a helicopter, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cage proceeds to meet with General Brigham about the next stage of military operations. To his shock, he is informed that he is to deploy within 1 hour and will be on the frontline vanguard of the coming alien invasion. Trying to talk his way out of the situation, he quickly realizes that it is not a request but an order. With his final act of defiance, he attempts to blackmail the general, only to be quickly arrested. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in an army boot camp, about to deploy to the front lines of an alien invasion. Trying to smooth talk his current commanding officer once again fails, as he is brought to his unit in handcuffs. His officer also informs him that paperwork was sent to him, describing him as a deserter and a liar, and nothing he says is to be trusted. After being introduced to the rest of his unit, he is quickly suited up in advanced alien fighting battle armor. Unfortunately, he has no idea how to use it and struggles to acclimate. He is then quickly loaded onto a plane and heads to the front line of battle. Before he even arrives at the battlefield, his plane is shot down and he falls into the ocean just shy of the battle. While his fellow units are all dying around him, he manages to run to the beach. While trying not to die, he sees a woman fighting against several aliens before she is killed. In an attempt to flee, he hides in the sand while his unit is decimated until he notices one of the aliens is slightly different than the others. It has a glowing blue hue around it and is much larger than the others. In his final act, he grabs a claymore and blows the alien to pieces. The blood from the alien splashes onto him, melting his face in a grisly death. Suddenly, he wakes up again in the military base, as if the entire thing was a dream. In a daze, he follows the same path as he previously went through, unsure of whether or not it is a dream. Landing again on the beach, this time he saves the woman from his prior life. He then dies on the beach, only to wake once again. This time, he is in a panic and tries to inform Sergeant Farrell about what he saw. He is again dragged into the building, and he sees his same team as before. He begins to name all of them and certain habits they have, revealing that there is a card game under the blanket. Desperately trying to convince them of the future, he begins to spout knowledge that he shouldn't know. Instead of believing him, he finds himself tied up with tape over his mouth and taken to the same battlefield. He once again dies by saving another soldier and wakes up again at the base. A montage begins of Cage replaying the battle while saving as many people as possible and dying in the process, each time getting farther and farther in the war before being killed. He finds the blonde woman again, and this time he knows where every alien is and where they are coming from. Realizing something is strange, she tells him to find her when he wakes up, before suddenly the ship blows up, killing them both. He wakes up in the base once again, although this time he is very calm. He arrives at J Squad and hides their card game, this time trying a different approach to befriend the squad. While the team is out running laps, Cage rolls himself under a vehicle and accidentally kills himself. He wakes up again and this time successfully rolls underneath it and moves past the vehicle to escape the sergeant. He is searching for the woman named Rita in hopes of speaking with her about what is happening to him. He finds Rita at her training grounds and begins to talk to her. She starts to ask him a series of questions, such as what his first death was like and what mimic did he kill. He describes it to her, and she asks if he was covered in the blood of the blue mimic. The same thing happened to her, but she was able to cure it and had her powers of regression taken from her. The two of them then head to the warehouse and into a secret room where they meet with a doctor who knows about what is happening to him. He explains more about the science of mimics and how they are actually a single connected hive mind organism, and the main leader of the mimics has the ability to control time. Whenever an alpha, otherwise known as a blue mimic, is killed, a response is triggered which causes the brain to remember what is going to happen. The reason the aliens are winning is because they can see the future using this ability. Somehow, Cage has seized control of the ability and is the key to winning the battle. He has to die every day until he makes sure that the battle is won. The new plan is for Cage to use his strange power to reveal the location of the Omega, and once it is revealed, Rita will kill it. This will take place through the strange visions he begins having after regressing a certain number of times. Cage then must undergo training to be able to fight against the aliens. A montage ensues depicting Cage training and repeatedly being killed when he is injured beyond repair, slowly improving from the training. After multiple deaths, he receives a vision showing the location of the Omega. He then meets with the Doctor and Rita and asks him to figure out the location of the Omega through clues from the vision. The next day on the battlefield, Rita and Cage are working together, but repeatedly make mistakes. Another montage occurs of both of them planning the fight. They get farther each time, but sadly, it always ends in death. In one of the regressions, Cage escapes from the base and drives to a bar when he suddenly hears explosions. The aliens have made it to the city and are destroying everything in their path. Cage is once again killed, and the day resets. Back at the training grounds, the Doctor reveals that he found the Omega. The next day, Rita and Cage are going through their plan on the battlefield, realizing that the plan is working perfectly. They reach uncharted territory and must find a vehicle to get further inland. After some searching, they find a minivan and begin to drive. Cage tries to get closer to Rita, but it reminds her of the time she had the same ability and saw her friends die multiple times. They finally leave the car and arrive at an abandoned house, where they step out of their exosuits and enter the house. They begin to inspect the home and find a small helicopter when Rita reveals a large gash on her back and Cage applies first aid. Rita plans to kill him and reset the day when Cage gives her a coffee with 3 sugars, exactly how she likes it. This surprises her, causing her to ask how many times they have been there. Cage reveals that Rita never makes it past this point, and he doesn't want to continue without her. Cage doesn't want to kill the Omega without making sure that she lives. Unfortunately, Rita starts the helicopter and gets attacked by a mimic. She dies, which forces Cage to reset once again. He wakes up back at the base and finds Rita, but this time he doesn't talk to her. He decides to carry out the plan alone and doesn't bother saving anyone. He finds the helicopter and flies to the dam where the Omega is. He enters the dam and begins his search. He is then attacked by a mimic, but these ones are refusing to kill him, actively preventing him from dying. It is almost as if they know that he has the ability to reset time. Fortunately, he eventually dies and returns to the base. He talks with the Doctor and tells them that the Omega wasn't at the dam, explaining that they weren't trying to kill him. The Doctor reveals a piece of theoretical equipment that he has that could help them, but he is unable to build it due to the lack of materials in the base. In order to complete it, they plan to go to Whitehall, which is where the Doctor worked before he was demoted. Rita and Cage go to Whitehall and begin to infiltrate the building, where they enter the General's office and inform him about the situation. After some time, they managed to convince the General to hand them the Doctor's gadget. Cage and Rita then leave the building, but are quickly apprehended by security. They escape into a car where Cage inserts the device into his leg and gets a vision of the Omega. It is hiding in the city of Paris. The car they are in is then wrecked, and Cage wakes up on a hospital bed. Unfortunately, he is unable to kill himself because he is strapped down. Rita then finds Cage and prepares to kill him, but due to the blood transfusion he received, Cage is unable to reset the day anymore and must continue without the power. Cage proceeds to convince the J-Squad that he knows the future and gets their help to stop the Omega. The team flies out in a helicopter as they head towards Paris. Unfortunately, the helicopter is attacked by various aliens and they begin to drop down into the field. Cage stays in the helicopter and crashes into a lake. He sinks down into the water but manages to swim out by abandoning his exosuit. He realizes he is at one of the locations he saw in his vision, near the Omega. He then finds Rita and the rest of the team, but many of the members have died and they are low on ammo. 2 of the remaining members then sacrifice themselves to to buy time for the rest to reach the Omega. Several members die while they are flying in the plane towards the Omega, leaving Rita and Cage as the last two alive that must carry out the mission. The two barely reach the pyramid where the Omega is, as they continue on foot and fight off aliens to get closer to the Omega. The two eventually find the Omega, but are ambushed by an Alpha. In a last-minute decision, Rita thanks and kisses Cage and runs out of cover to distract the Alpha. Cage then runs towards the Omega with a satchel full of grenades. He jumps into the water and swims towards the Omega as he is chased by the Alpha. In his final act, the Alpha stabs Cage through the chest as the satchel plunges into the Omega and explodes. This causes a chain reaction that destroys the rest of the aliens around the globe. Luckily, the blood from the Omega floats upward and fuses with the body of Cage. He wakes up in the original helicopter on his way to meet with the General, where he watches a media report that the aliens have mysteriously stopped moving. In the final scene of the film, he approaches his old training ground where he sees Rita. Although she doesn't recognize him, he looks upon her with a smile. Thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out when you do that. And of course, check out the other videos if you like watching recaps.